The Amazon labor union is about to do it. 2 years ago this week, Amazon worker Christian Smalls organized a walkout at his warehouse in Staten Island to protest the company's lack of pandemic safety measures. Smalls was fired over it, and Amazon executives were later busted for smearing him, claiming he wasn't smart or articulate, and if the press wanted to focus on him, then that's better for the company. Welp, in a reversal of Shakespearean proportions, Smalls returned to the facility in Staten Island and is now on the verge of organizing the first Amazon union in the United States. The NLRB began counting ballots in the union election at the Staten Island Distribution Center on Thursday, and with a majority of votes counted so far, the upstart independent Amazon labor union and its president, Christian Smalls, are defying all the odds. The union leads with 1,518 yes votes to only 1,154 no votes. It's unclear just how many votes are left to be counted, but 6 out of 10 boxes of ballots have already been tabulated. Now, sure, anything can happen, but it would be a real statistical anomaly for Amazon to reverse this election in the remaining votes. Vote counting at the NLRB resumes in just a few minutes at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and in all likelihood, the union will finish what it started and win the election, one of the most significant labor victories in a generation, perhaps even longer. And something remarkable about this is that the union did it all on its own. No Democratic members of Congress showed up to support the organizing, not even members of the squad, not Bernie Sanders. Major labor groups basically ignored what was happening. But for nearly a year, the union was on site organizing, and it was precisely because of its independent status, which scared off establishment labor, that it had a powerful counter-argument to Amazon's anti-union propaganda. It wasn't some outside group trying to organize workers. It was the workers themselves, led by Smalls, a former worker himself. A similar dynamic to what we're seeing with the worker-driven organizing effort at Starbucks. Democrats didn't just ignore the historic union fight, they helped fund the campaign against it. CNBC reported on Thursday that Amazon hired an influential Democratic polling firm to do union busting at the Staten Island warehouse. Global Strategy Group has worked on a number of Democratic campaigns, including serving as a polling partner to Joe Biden's super PAC in 2020. Democratic politicians like Joe Manchin and Ed Markey have relied on the firm's services, and White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki used to even work there. Well, the company has spent the last year now producing union-busting materials for Amazon, too. According to filings with the Department of Labor, Amazon spent over $4 million in total on the services of union-busting firms last year. That's way more than any other company. Looking at the results in Staten Island, executives have to be wondering what exactly they paid for. The Amazon Labor Union is also behind a second organizing push at another warehouse in Staten Island, which will hold an election at the end of April. Now, as massive of a story as this pending labor win in New York is, it wasn't the only election Amazon was fending off on Thursday. Votes were simultaneously being counted at a warehouse in Bessemer, Alabama. It was a union election do-over after the first results last year were tossed out by the NLRB due to illegal behavior by the company. In that first election, Amazon won by about a 2-1 margin. This election is much, much closer than last year's. The company holds a narrow 118-vote lead, but there are over 400 ballots that have been challenged. And since they could determine the final result of the election, the NLRB will hold a hearing on whether or not they should be counted in the coming weeks. So that fight isn't over yet. In other labor news, on April 1st, 2021, miners at Warrior Met Coal in Brookwood, Alabama, began their strike for a fair contract. Here we are on April 1st, 2022, and they're still on strike. The last employment contract the miners had was in 2016 when the company was going through bankruptcy. The workers had to make sacrifices on their pay and benefits. But more than 5 years later, with fresh capital sloshing around Warrior Met, the company is profitable again, but it doesn't want to share any of those profits with its workforce. Numerous contract offers from the firm have kept in place the concessions workers were asked to make in 2016. So workers have voted them down each time, which is why this strike has lasted for over a year now. The miners have taken their strike beyond Brookwood, Alabama, and have held actions in New York City and here in Washington, D.C., outside the corporate headquarters of capitalists who hold large investments in Warrior Met. The union estimates that the strike has cost Warrior Met upwards of $1 billion in lost revenue. Quarterly reports show the company lost about $50 million paying security to deal with the strike, plus the cost of mines being idle. And workers are prepared to hold out as long as it takes. The UMWA says it has paid out about $20 million to striking workers over the last year in lost wages and healthcare benefits. Almost $2 million was raised from other unions and supporters. And while it's not usually kosher to disclose just how big the strike fund is, the UMWA says it has the resources to keep this going for another several years. Finally, conservative Democrats in the Senate tanked a Labor Department nominee because the Chamber of Commerce told them to. David Weil was President Biden's nominee to head the Labor Department's Wage and Hour Division, a post that would have given him the power to enforce lots of worker protections that are already on the books but have simply been ignored for decades. He's the first Biden nominee to lose a confirmation vote in the Senate. Thanks to the 3 Democrats who rejected his nomination, you probably won't be surprised to hear their names: Kyrsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, and Mark Kelly. Manchin told Politico that, quote, Mr. Weil's track record and previous statements are problematic for many West Virginia employees and business owners. The reason why Capitol hates Weil so much is due to his prior work in the department. He was the wage and labor chief during Obama when, as Politico notes, he implemented several regulations that drew criticism from Republicans and business groups, including rules that dramatically expanded the number of workers eligible to earn overtime, increased the number of employers who could be held liable as so-called joint employers, and placed limits on which workers could qualify as an independent contractor rather than employee. Weil has also been an outspoken critic of the labor practices of gig companies like Uber. No surprise that every Republican was opposed to Weil, but saying mean things about some of the biggest labor exploiters in the country is apparently enough for Democrats to also sink your nomination. What a worthless party. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our new videos. Also, if you want to see Means Morning News in its complete form, not just the clips we post here, head on over to Means TV and get access to all our new episodes and our entire backlog, plus tons of other great movies and original TV shows.